Today on Chris Dyer's Creative Friends.
The world is so unpredictable now and things are moving so fast, and I made a painting about this once of trying to tap into how much control do we really have over the human destiny. You know, because Terence McKenna talked about this a lot, about the singularity. Like everything's going towards this point, but it's a constant expansion of novelty to the point where we can't even discern reality anymore. And I think I try to always show the light and the dark. And I think that this reality has those elements to it. Everything has a positive and negative reaction. You know, if you ever go through a dark or a difficult time, you can kind of hold on because you know that when you get through this, you're going to find some real beauty. You know, and I think when we really tap into that, we feel so much lighter.
Salud.
Hello.
We're recording, right?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Sweet.
Thanks for joining me out here,
Good to
Jack.
see you again, buddy.
Yeah, totally. We are like really trying to not to speak, not really.
Yeah. We brushed across some stuff, but tried to avoid going too much into depth.
We're gonna catch up. But how should I refer to you, or how should people know you? As Jack Lightfoot or as Torus Energy, or both?
I guess both.
What does the Torus Energy stand for? Are you a Taurus?
No. So it's like the toroid is like the shape of an apple. It's also the way that all seeds tend to grow from their center in this kind of like out of the top and bottom. And also they maybe sprout from one side, so the energy flow of a Taurus can be going one way or multiple directions. So it's also the shape of the electromagnetic field of the Earth.
Yeah.
So
it's a self-creating energy field, correct?
Yeah.
So it's almost like we're living in a ocean of nothingness and pure consciousness, and whatever creates itself in a fountain.
Yeah, I mean, that was the concept that I was attached to when I came up with the name. So
does it still resonate, or you still gotta carry it and be like, this name, it's my Instagram handle, so what you gonna do? Or you rather just rock as Jack? Or
I think I actually introduced myself as Jack now, and then people don't connect the dots because they probably know Torus Energy, but they don't know me as a person, especially here, because I'm not really properly a known face yet here. So yet, hopefully. But you know, people tend to recognize my work, so I kind of always used both.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, the idea was that it's taking this energy that's always there, that's always present, and then turning it into something like beautiful, some type of form of creation. So it's all about, for me, taking that creative energy and turning it into something to convey that process.
Yeah, it's almost like a recycling energy that doesn't like die, but it transmutes into something new as it fountains back up, or vice versa.
Yeah, like an eternal energy in a way.
Yeah. It's like a eternity symbol in a way, but in 3D.
Exactly.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Good, cool.
Yeah, I mean, if you take the infinity symbol and you just kind of duplicated it and span it from its center, it would make a torus. So yeah.
That's awesome. So let's introduce our viewers to where we at right now. Do you want to describe, what a British visionary artist is doing in the middle of the Floridian swamp?
Yeah. So I came here 5 years ago. I think I was connected through Corey. And Corey knew Anya, and he was saying, well, I'm going to go to this festival in Florida. And I said, okay, that sounds fun. And everybody was saying, hey, it's a good festival. So he sent a message to Anya and said, oh, I've got Torus Energy here with me, and she already knew me and was like, yep, cool, bring him along. We got some murals he can do. Yeah. So I did this one 5 years ago. I'm surprised how well it's held up, to be honest. It speaks a lot for sprays, but even though it's on ply, it's held up really well. And there's another one over there, which I threw up in maybe 2 hours.
Okay, I saw a little quickie down there.
Yeah.
And this was something you painted in what, like 3, 4, 5 days?
I think it was maybe 3 days. Yeah.
Cool. And you paint your murals with brushes, not with spray paint, as many of us do.
Yeah, I think I did use a little bit of spray.
As a base?
Yeah, so I think I got it started with spray, and then all of the details I went in with brush. But I don't really have a consistent method that I use. I get a bit addicted to always trying to experiment and do something new. So
Yeah, no, that's good.
I'll probably never make a piece like this ever again, but I don't know. I think I like to draw on these old mythological ideas and esoteric, and then kind of fuse it into something that can kind of connect with the viewer.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a lot more like very kind of mythological fantasy.
Yeah,
kind of
ancient
thing.
alien kind of vibes.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah,
so,
it's like the Prometheus. I get Prometheus vibes. So
Yeah.
You know that movie?
Yeah, for sure, because
Yeah.
he's kind of got the Geiger-esque. But they called engineers from the Prometheus movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was
And-
unintentional, but that stuff is, you know, impregnated my inspiration, my imagination. So I guess as we can all have that as artists,
Yeah.
all of our influences they're in there in our subconscious, and they kind of come out whether we
Right.
want them to or not.
Beautiful. And I imagine it doesn't really matter you doing this here, you're doing this in England, in Hungary, Australia, etc. Just like, you know, art's art, and it doesn't, people don't really know where you're from. It doesn't really like disconnect you from any scenes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I mean,
But it must be like quite different to come to Florida, to the Suwannee Park.
yeah, no,
Say,
I really like this place. It's a bit dusty, but that's my only critique. Like, people
Oh, yeah.
here are lovely, and hanging out with the artists like you guys, and yeah, connecting with people. It's like really what I yearn for.
Yeah, what's the difference
Yeah.
between like the British visionary art scene, if there isn't, is there one? I know there's like artists like K Visuals and Harry Pack and you know a few more other visionary artists that I can think, but like scenes, sometimes there's a little festival, there's the Oxford Psychedelic Society, little things that I know of, but like what is it like out in UK for a visionary artist?
I've tried to connect with everybody that is available to connect with. I think there's much less of us there. I mean, obviously England has a smaller population, but I would like to think that I know a lot of the people who are in that scene, but we don't really have a scene. There was a couple of festivals that had their gallery, that one of them just actually finished because of COVID, and I don't think they could really keep it going.
What was it called?
It was called Anthropos.
Okay.
It was
in London?
It was near to London. It was in Cambridge, and it was run by a couple of brothers that were really, really sweet guys, and that was amazing for us because it felt, oh my God, we're gonna get our scene, you know? It really felt like that because the first time they did it, they had people like Miles Johnston, who now lives in Sweden. You might know him. There's a girl called Kapat. I forget her name. There was some artists who I'd wanted to meet for many years, and we had a girl called Luna Charlotte, who you may know.
Yeah.
She was there.
I thought she was from British
Canada.
Columbia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was
And
living there.
Morgan and Randall were there.
Yeah.
A guy called Simon Rusk.
Bridget Marlin.
I don't know if I know.
Really? Bridget Marlin's old school, old granny lady who studied under Ernst Fuchs.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and she's in England and she teaches the Mish technique.
Right.
So as the, you know, so there was Fuchs, and Fuchs taught Amanda Sage, Lawrence Caruana, Bridget
Yes,
Marlin, and
yeah.
they each teach their own version of the Mish technique.
Okay.
Raul Venosa was one of them, and he
Yes.
taught his version. Yeah.
I feel like maybe there's more people there that I know. Maybe the point is that they're a lot more.
Individuals more in a
Yes.
scene.
Maybe they don't want to connect as much because they're very much studio artists. They're a bit more solitary, a bit more introverted. You know, that gallery that I was referring to at this Anthropos was being managed by Joey Baker, who you may have heard of. He's like one of my best friends. And,
Okay.
this project that we're doing in Mexico, we kind of started doing that together. And another is his partner, Katrina Rupit, who's from Mexico. You probably have heard of her before. So they were helping to run the gallery, and they orchestrated all of the people to come there together, and it was very good. But unfortunately, you know, right
Yeah.
after was the COVID thing, and
It's tough to keep a gallery in general, especially one that's like, oh, the enlightenment of humanity art.
Yeah,
It's like, are people ready for that yet? Maybe not. We'll see.
I mean,
still do it.
I have had thought about this quite a lot, and I think that because in the US, people, they clearly have a bit more disposable income. They clearly have quite a bit more money just in general.
Okay.
So then it's not just that, but also the counterculture has more monetary energy behind it. That could maybe be because of the weed industry. So in a lot of the states in the US now it's legal, I believe, and
that's good or bad for our scene, depending.
Yeah, but I mean, at least these people who are connected in some form or other to that world have become quite wealthy.
Yeah.
And that's become a whole industry.
Totally.
Whereas in the UK, people who do that are treated as criminals still.
Yeah, it's still illegal.
Yeah, and
to
it's
use any substances.
then in the kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, them trying to avoid the authorities for doing something like that, it kind of makes you feel like you're a sneaky character, and people look at you as shady.
Personally, I prefer that. I'd rather be an illegal skater, and user, and whatever, and still do what comes from my heart.
Yeah.
Than the powers that be to be like, okay, now you can be yourself. It's like, oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's like,
I get that too. I mean, maybe it's the idea of this, infinite power that we believe is so powerful that has this dominion over us is what actually is disempowering us, for sure. Yeah, I could relate to that.
But I think the cool thing about being a European artist or visionary artist is that you have all of the continent.
Yeah.
We've met in Portugal.
I think we met in Portugal. We also were in Hungary. I think Hungary was the first time we'd ever met.
In Hungary, we hanged out.
Yeah, for sure.
In Hungary, we hanged out, and no girls would ever talk to me because they would go and talk to you, and I'm just like, God damn it, can't hang out with Jack for too long here. But I met you in Boom. You were collaborating with Luke Brown at the time.
Yes.
Yeah. How was that experience?
That was great. I think Luke was. He kept coming and checking in multiple times a day, because I've always really looked up to Luke as well for many years, because he was one of the first visionary artists I ever saw when I was a lot younger. So when I first saw that, I was thinking, this is all hand painted? Like zooming right in and being like, what? I don't even understand how it is. I'd never seen anything like that before. So that had a big impression on me, because it was one of the first people that I saw. So
yeah, he goes hard on the details.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that was kind of coming full circle there.
Yeah.
Doing that collaboration with him, and he helped me get that opportunity.
At Boom?
Yeah, cool. So in that, I think it's good to give people credit for that, for sure. Like he helped me a lot with that. And at the first couple of days of the festival, he was kind of checking back in every hour or so, just saying like, okay, yeah, he's got this concept. So I made the sketch and I came up with the concept, and I was kind of, what do you think of this? This is what I'm thinking is happening in this piece, the idea behind it. And I think towards the night time on day 2 or day 3, he was like, yeah, it looks good. Like, I really like this. And he's like, I'm going to get involved now. So then after that, every day we were working on it together. And that was a lovely experience. And I was hanging out with Luis Tamani and Jeans Argenti.
That's 2016, was it?
Yeah, it probably was. Yeah.
Android was there, but he was hiding in the back.
Yeah, I had a tender moment with him where I was saying like, you've really inspired me, and I'm so glad to be here with you and chat with you. And he was like, didn't really know how to take it.
Yeah. He's alien from a different planet from Mars, perhaps.
Yeah, I feel the pretty special ability that we have as artists is when we see somebody else's work. If they're working from their heart, you kind of get a window into their soul.
Yeah. So you see the true them.
Yeah. If you have the eyes to see it, it's very revealing, really, what people are showing you. Some people might not look that deep into it. It might just be, oh, that's a cool image. But, when I look at your art, I see into your soul, because you're putting your soul into it. And that's the same how I have with a lot of other artists, too. Yeah. And with Andrew, I would say it's a similar thing. And
Yeah.
And
Well,
seeing-
in general, I think like in order to make like really crazy, trippy art that comes from like your most deeper version of yourself and reality, to some degree, we're kind of crazy or
Yeah.
neurodivergent or weird or autistic on the spectrum,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
you want to call it. And then we come in and it's like, hey, I'm Chris Dyer.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I'm Jack. Hey, I'm Android.
Yeah.
And then we're all trying to figure ourselves out in this
Yeah.
like weird perspectives that we have as human beings.
Well, we're looking for the edge of everything all the time because we're trying to look for something novel, some new inspiration, or tap into something unique, and that it requires you to be a little bit odd. You know, you want to experiment with all different types of things, and you feel if you have more knowledge, you have more points of reference, therefore you have more inspiration. So we tend to, you know, a lot of artists that I know, they tend to occupy the edges of society for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, actually, just to go back to Andrew, I do remember I actually met him the first time I ever went to Boom Festival, which may have been around 11 or 12 years ago.
Okay.
And that was when he did the dragon by the lake.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember who was helping him construct it, but it was made on the dragon. And I'd actually been following him for a long time because he was working with a company called Massive Black, who was doing concept art of video games. And I remember seeing him in the, you know, when they were doing these events, and he would be there with his like neck strap, with his big Wacom Cintiq, going around with the 21-inch Cintiq, and you could just tell that he was like a total weird guy in that field, and just coming up with all these new experimental techniques, and that was like really inspiring to me at the time. And that was way before I was in the visionary art scene, but I remember seeing his stuff and thinking, well, it's this concept art video game basis, but there's something else going on there. I don't know, I couldn't quite put my finger on it, you know?
Right. Well, it's the psychedelics, perhaps.
Yeah.
I know he microdoses a lot. His company is called Microdose.
Yeah, for sure.
So he's tapping into his soul and expressing it. But perhaps because of his sensitivities, I don't know. He's a little bit more, creates more boundaries around him to keep that protected.
Yeah, I get that for sure.
No, same with me, you know, like we all got our ways, like, you know, I got my ways of like chilling out in a public place.
Yeah, letting loose a little bit, not being, because, you know, we can be quite hypersensitive.
Well, I understand the need to travel a lot as a Canadian who was in Montreal, Canada, Eastern Canada. Like, yeah, sure, it's closer to the States and the scene, but still, it's another country, another planet than, say, Seattle, California, Colorado. That's where the visionary art scene's been cruising for, and so you got to go out there and travel. I know you've traveled a lot, not only just Europe, but all around the world.
Yeah.
Because when I went to India, I saw a lot of your pieces on the street.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah,
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Like Pushkar?
Yeah,
perhaps?
yeah. I did so many in Pushkar. I mean, they were hidden all over the place.
And you were hanging out a lot with my homie from Montreal, Waxit, who's a street artist who has declined from being on the show, but Waxit, I'm gonna get you. You gotta be on the show eventually, and I can show you to the world.
Is he scared? Is he of the?
Because he's a street artist, he doesn't want to show his face. But I've had other street artists just use a mask, or you know, we blur their faces.
Give him a voice code or something.
No, it's fine. Maybe he's just being shy. But I always love his art. I love his spirit, and he's an old friend. And this show's all about like, you know, talking to my friends about art.
It was huge meeting him back then. That was a long time ago, but yeah, I was traveling India with an ex-partner of mine. And I think she was getting jealous by how much I was hanging out with him. Because as soon as it was, okay, you're an artist too. We just so happened to be in this very, you know, weird location, and we're just kind of sketching every day. And then he's just going out and doing these street paintings all over the place, and it really made me want to do the same, you know?
Yeah. So you were doing almost like visionary art, but in the streets, because you're seeing a street artist just going out there and fucking putting weird creatures around.
I just wanted to paint all the time, and I knew the more mileage I got, the better I was going to get, and that was what it was all about to me. That's also why I used the moniker Torus Energy, because I didn't want to put my face online, because it was, and then I didn't want it to become like an identity thing. I think we brushed across that topic yesterday. But then as the time went on, I realized that, you know, it was just some weird internal paradigm that I was going through. And
But yeah,
it helped me get to where I am. I didn't regret anything.
You guys have traveled India a couple times now.
Yeah, I've lived in India a total over a year.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Because you guys go to India for like what, like 1, 2, 3 months over winter to escape the bad winters.
Yeah, that was what we were
Canada.
doing. We don't really go back there anymore now because it's it was good for us when we were artists because there were so many opportunities there to just keep gaining the mileage.
Plus
as it was.
cheap.
Plus it was cheap and we didn't have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So it was great for grinding our teeth on doing murals and making new connections. I even had a small clothing company at one point that I made unique garments from. I was always looking for the most obscure and rare and high value fabrics that I could get my hands on. And then I would make one-of-a-kind pieces of each of those to the highest quality that I possibly could. And that was like just a fun thing to do for a while. So India really helped me grow as a person.
Yeah,
and
the
gain life
expression is
experience.
cutting your teeth, not grinding your teeth.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, grinding your teeth is almost like, motherfucker. Cutting your teeth is like, okay, let's get this shit sharp.
Yeah. I was thinking it was like grinding them to make them sharp.
Yeah, well, perhaps it's the same. But yeah, in say Pushkar, let's keep it Pushkar. Lovely town with a lake in the middle, and then you can just be in a cheap motel that probably costs you like what, $5-10 a day, and then you just hang out on the rooftops, and there's a bunch of hippies fire dancing, and you're just doing your paintings, and then you paint the streets in the middle of the day, and nobody cares. Everybody's like, oh, cool, more art.
Totally.
Like this, that's the Indian.
It was
vibe.
amazing for us. I mean, I feel India is just humanity turned to the max, when you have so much frequency too, with how much population there is, how many people there are there, it just creates all kinds of, I feel like people there, they're doing whatever they can to become recognized.
Maximum cultural expression.
Yeah, so there'll be a guy who makes chai, but he's not just making chai, he's doing all of this crazy stuff, spinning cups on his hand. That's how it is. It doesn't matter what task somebody's doing, they're trying to do it with some level of flair and uniqueness to become recognized, because when there's so many people there, you got to stand out on some level, otherwise you just fade in with the crowd.
Gotta turn up the volume of your self-expression.
Totally. So that has positive and negative.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, it's not to be brushed over. India can be a very dangerous place, and it's I've seen a lot of that danger there as well, but that also made me much tougher as a person, and knowing how to deal with that. I've seen like people dying there. I've seen like dead people. So it was dark.
Of what? Dying of what?
I guess they were incredibly ill, and I mean the roads there are crazy. Unfortunately, we knew a lot of people who were dying in motorcycle accidents, and it's without going too deep into that because it's quite dark. But I think it becomes a little bit too much like a playground for people, and if you get into that mindset where you feel like you're invincible, which is good sometimes, but when there are active dangers, you really got to be aware of those, and India's just one of those places.
As an artist, what's the importance of traveling?
I think it's maybe an addiction to new experiences.
Novelty.
Novelty, yeah, it's an addiction to novelty. I think I always wanted to be maybe seeing something that was giving me some unique information to get some unique perspective.
Yeah.
And I felt that when I had that detachment to physical possession, because I was quite a poor artist, and going to places like India was great for me because every direction I went was new experiences. So I guess that's where it comes from. But that also has given me, I feel, a mental weakness that I have to constantly keep in check, which is that the social media or like the information I can gain through the internet, it has such an addictive property to me because it's completely novel all the time.
Every post is like can be new and exciting to the brain at least.
But that can be a weakness too, because it takes your time, it takes your attention, and so that's kind of my battle now is to be much more discerning about where I put my attention.
Yeah, it's good to be in a place like this where there's like no internet. So it's like, well, no posts this weekend, no checking out anything else, just focusing on the physical experience that we're going through.
And that's great because
right
we can
now.
all be present together and actually have these types of conversations. I mean, we would be having this conversation on or off the camera. I mean, this feels very organic for us.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how our conversations tend to go anyway.
Yeah, totally. There's just so much cultural richness here already. We don't have to be distracted, but we are losing 3 to 5 hours a day on this video game that, maybe it can get us advanced on making a couple sales, or we could have been painting all that time your next masterpiece for all we know.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. I take a look at all these old masters and all the architecture that was created in history and all these. I mean, I went to the Met recently in New York City. It's very similar to a museum we have in London called Victoria and Albert Museum. They had the same kind of showings and same kind of things, furniture, weaponry, everything you can think of from history.
Yeah.
And the level of craftsmanship is, I feel,
Humbling,
it haunts me because I feel we've lost our attention span, and I wonder if we will ever get it back.
Well, to get that good, like say when I go to Peru,
no distractions,
and I go to the church, and all of a sudden there's like 30 chairs for the priesthood, but the chairs are just like the most crazy wood carvings ever, and I'm like, oh my God, this must have taken a lifetime to carve just this thing right here, and who does that these days? Who has the time?
Yeah, and that's the thing now. I have made a few pieces of quite high-level furniture because I'm also a carpenter as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And now I'm doing architecture and construction and building design and this stuff. And it really has given me such a deep appreciation for that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I always was like, oh, that's cool, you know, it's inspiring, but now I'm scratching my head at the people who were doing this without any kind of electricity, no power tools, and I feel there's something in there that is kind of teaching me something. Always. Like I wish I had that level of complete focus and no distractions, but I think that at the end of the day we are just only human. We are animals, and our attention is being stolen, our psyche is being hijacked because they found a back door into our mental weaknesses.
Our reptilian brain parts that is looking for certain chemicals. So I didn't even know you made furniture. What's the style? Are you like carving it, or like should I assume that you go to Bali every now and then and learn under like wood carvers?
No, I mean I've not learned from anybody really. I had a mentor for a few weeks who was just like a friend of a friend who showed me how to do chainsaw carving. But I started from making my own canvas frames. So I bought the equipment for that, and I'd always dabbled in a few bits of carving or a little project here, but nothing major. And then I think that was going on for many years, and I started making furniture out of waste wood, and then I got better and more refined. I had more tools, and I would move into higher quality woods, and then now I feel I can make pretty much anything out of wood, but it's definitely a matter of time. When you go from...
And storage.
Yeah.
Because then you make this giant thing, it's like, okay, who wants to buy my super cool carved couch that now I gotta put in somewhere?
Yeah, I've never actually sold a piece of furniture.
Oh no.
Because I enjoy it, and I feel it's not... If I'm gonna make a piece of furniture, as opposed to making a painting. If I make a painting, I can make prints. If I make a piece of furniture, I make one piece of furniture.
Yeah.
And the value of furniture in this society now is a lot lower than it would be for some fine piece of art.
Thank you, IKEA.
Yeah. But now I can duplicate the image, and people can buy that, and it's more accessible. So furniture always seemed more of just like a hobby to me.
Yeah.
And
so you're doing it for a love.
Yes. Yeah.
For the sake of doing something beautiful, like, wow, I did this.
Yeah, or home improvement too, and you know, and then if I get really into something, I try to do it to a really high level, and so that's just led me onto the project that I was doing in Mexico, and I got given a few good opportunities for a festival that I was doing for many years in Finland called Cosmos Festival. So shout out to Cosmos Festival. They really helped me blossom in that field because they trusted me with quite a large amount of money and large amount of responsibility to build them a permanent structure. And that would always been my dream, but I was thinking, how am I going to get this trust for somebody? And they really let me go with that. And I went the year, it was maybe 2000 and like late into 2019, we went there, we did the base, we dug out all the foundation, we harvested the wood, we stacked it to be dried, and then the year afterwards, we'd already stripped all the bark too, and we went there the year afterwards and went there a month ahead of the festival, and we built this gigantic temple out of these big wooden pillars.
So it's more like an installation piece.
Yeah, it's permanent. Yeah, but it's
plus permanent. That's great.
Yeah, I have done lots of installations in the past, but now I'm, you know, I will do another one if it's permanent.
I think in the world of hippie festivals that we navigate, we can get hired to live paint, and maybe we'll sell some things here and there, and maybe we get paid beforehand depending on the festival. But installations, that's what the festivals are looking at. We want interactive things that the attendees can come and take their pictures, and it's like it almost seems like it's more valued.
Yeah, I think art can be a feature in that space, but the space itself can be the art too, and that kind of, it gives if you go into a church 300 years ago, and you see all these beautiful paintings in the world. You're a humble farmer, you walk into this church, you see the big stained glass windows, all of this carved stone and paintings. It's going to make you a believer, right? And putting the art in that place gives it this grandiose presentation.
Divine.
Yeah, it makes it feel divine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to make a believer out of somebody. Especially if it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, the most artistic thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
So this is kind of where my philosophy comes from, to try and tap into that again, to make these new modern temples, something that's hard to destroy, something that's going to last for a long time. And, you know, I see people like Alex Gray, who's constructing Entheon as a gallery.
You were there recently?
Yeah, I did, yeah, for the first time. And, you know, it's just fantastic. I mean, I was very complimentary towards the.
You went on a good weekend, because who was there? We had Randall Roberts.
Yeah, there was Stella. Stella was there.
Yeah.
And Gavin there came with me too. I mean, Karen Cromer came back too.
Karen.
Yeah, there was Illuminated Rose was there with her partner too. And
how did you like Cosm, and how does that inspire you to see how big something visionary could be?
I mean, I think we've all been inspired by it, right? You know, you have so many pieces there yourself. Just the art alone,
but then the community is just like the next level. It's like, whoa,
I mean,
this could be something.
It gives everybody a feeling like they're on to some cultural movement. And I think that's really important.
I think if they succeed, it gives us I don't want to say smaller artists, just like younger artists, lower generations, or younger generations, the first the vision that it's possible, and second, like, oh, well, if they pulled it off, I can pull off my version.
Yeah, sure. And I think that, you know, them doing this thing has inspired me to create the same thing, you know. But this time I was really connecting with a guy who was working there called Brian, who was responsible for a lot of the construction work and stuff that was going on there, and helping facilitate all of those projects. And it's interesting because now I've been doing construction and architecture for the last 3 years, and really in that world, I connect with people like that now. So there's so many more worlds and doors that are open to me. And trying
we get known as a painter, and then you're like, yeah, but now I want to do this, now I want to do that, and does that mean that I'm abandoning my painter self? Or
I had that too.
You know, or does it just take turns?
I had that too in the beginning. and then I feel it's just the next part of my artistic evolution, my artistic expression. So yeah, I think I was thinking, well, I'm abandoning all of this stuff and all the skills I built up, but I feel they all roll together.
It complements each other.
Yeah,
it's just soul expression at the end, and once the church is built, then you can do the paintings as the centerpiece for it.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, and I want to dabble in everything now. I think I've always had that curiosity to experiment with everything, and like I was saying, every painting that I do, I feel like is an experiment.
Yeah, and you can't limit yourself and be like, well, I'm just gonna do this box and this thing, and if I dare to go out and become big in something else, like that's not possible because I'm supposed to be this.
Yeah.
Comes to mind, Carri Thompson. Do you know Carri Thompson?
Yes, I've met him a couple of times. Yeah,
he's great. Love Carri. He's a fantastic painter who was one of the top 10 visionary artists in the mid-2000s. And I haven't seen him paint in decades now. And now he does these installation, beautiful architectural stages, and he's in Meow Wolf, and he's taking his stuff to the next level. He makes way more money from that, from the installation side of things. But all the time I'm just like, oh, but he's such a good painter. I want to see him do a new painting. And whenever I see him, it's like, oh, one day, Chris, once I build my house in Costa Rica and everything's set, I'll chill out and paint a little bit.
It sounds like me and him are on a very similar wave currently, you know, having been both artists and then going into this construction field. And yeah, I feel that I want to also create those spaces where artists can come and their work can be presented in the way that it deserves.
Yeah, it's good to create the terrarium. Or just the space, or like the pot.
To nurture
with
people.
Earth, and then we put our plants and flowers in for them to grow. Because we can be a painter and love to paint, and then nobody buys our stuff, and we're like not paying our rent, and then it's like, okay, like, well, we need something to sustain us and give us nutrients.
For sure. I mean, the issue that we have right now is with art being a luxury item, we require everybody to be very high on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs in order for them to, you know, want to support us. Is there another?
No, we can share it.
Yeah, okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy. Nice and cold, you know.
Oh yeah, no, we've got ice and shit. It's like, thank you. Paulina's sharing hers with me, so you can have that one.
Thank you. Cheers. I don't drink very often, but with you, I will definitely have a couple of beers.
Yingling sponsored this show. Yeah, thank you, Yingling. Traditional lager. You're fantastic. Thank you for sending endless cases to my house to be part of this. No, I'm just joking. I wish. Sponsored by beer. We used to have a sponsor. It was Magic Mind. I don't think I sold any of their drinks. It was like healthy. It was matcha and all these great ingredients. I just suck at selling things. I don't even want to sell my stuff. I just want to do it. It's like, okay, I got to sell this stuff to pay the bills so I can keep on doing it, but. Hi, we take a little break from our super awesome podcast show so that I, your artist friend Chris Dyer, can tell you about my brand, Positive Creations, which I have been doing for 20 years. And with this project, I share my art through different products, maybe beautiful clothes that you can use in normal life or in the festival world, or skateboards that you can ride, or games like puzzles, or kendamas and flow toys, or use slip mats for your records. Basically a lot of functional things that just add fun and magic into your existence. So I hope you like it. Check out positivecreations.net. positivecreations.net. That was not a glitch. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Blessings.
That's the eternal dilemma of being an artist, isn't it? You're doing something, really trying to tap into your soul and your expression, and then you're like, this is that much.
Right. It's,
Yeah.
for visionary art, I feel like you almost like to be the best visionary artist, the most authentic, the most real, the most bringing like a really gem
You
of
have to
medicine.
be totally disconnected from that.
You have to be a mystic.
Yeah,
and a
for
mystic's
sure.
not giving a shit about likes and popularity and climbing a scene.
They're living in a cave and...
Yeah, not necessarily, but
maybe.
Maybe a chill Florida house with a mini ramp. That's my kind of
In
mysticism.
St. Petersburg, specifically. Yeah.
Yeah, and
with a room
but
full of
then
toys.
you gotta go out on social media and be like, hey everybody, aren't I cool? Don't you like me? Don't you want to give me your attention, your likes, your sale or whatever? It just seems not very connected.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
It's the thing is as well is we want to make more art, and we want to offer something to the world for people who are there to see it, but we have to be able to sustain ourselves. And I can't make the best work that I can make unless I'm supported. Mm-hmm. So, you know, as of the last 3 years, I've barely been making any artwork. I think when people are a bit lower down on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they're not really thinking about these luxury items. They're thinking about, I'm going to make sure my family has got enough food and water and shelter, et cetera,
Yeah.
and gasoline, and, you know, art it's cool. I'm looking at it, it's great.
It uplifts the soul,
yeah, it uplifts the whole
I
soul.
can't eat it. Or you could, but that would be really gnarly.
Yeah, probably toxic. If you were using acrylics, maybe, who knows? But yeah, I think it's a shame because there's a bit of a squeeze right now.
Yeah, everybody's
everybody.
like going through economical struggles.
And even, you know, people who probably both mutually we look up to, and you hear their stories and they're like, oh yeah, you know, I'm gonna have to try this other field because I'm like trying to make ends meet right now, and yeah.
Artists are struggling.
Yeah.
Sales are low. Just so you know, your viewer, maybe an artist or just a art lover, most of my artist friends are like, damn, am I gonna be able to keep on going with this art thing that I love to do, but if I'm not paying my rent, how can I keep on going forward? I'm gonna have to get that dishwasher job. And what a disgrace for a talented, beautiful, mystic expresser of light and the divine to go and do a shitty job that kills your soul.
Yeah, and also as well, the thing is it's a bit soul crushing for us because we trying to give what we can to kind of show something, and with the invent of AI now, I used to always fall back on commission work, so I would make my own personal pieces, and then I would sell the prints from that, and that would be my main bulk. And whenever I was, okay, this quarter wasn't that great, then I'm gonna put out some feelers, I'm up for logo designs, you know, company designs, whatever, and that would always sustain me. But now with AI, I feel people are just using that technology to make a lot of that stuff, because I feel like I saw when it was invented, a lot of the logo stuff started going first because it was very good at making logos, and I was, oh right, I can't
hate
find
doing
anybody
logos
to do
anyway,
logos.
so fine.
Yeah, but it is quick, you know. Like it was always a thing to fall back on, and I've done maybe like 100 logos.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So then when was gone, then as the
one
AI,
less little thing that could have finished paying off that rent or mortgage.
And now the AI is getting so good, it's using everybody as a data model. I can't compete with that. I just can't. I'm not. I mean, if somebody can find a use for that, I can't compete with it. So, you know.
I wonder what the etiquette should be about that. Should people be like, no, I'm not gonna get an AI logo because I believe that artists should have a job and keep on going, or sorry, artists, I just can't afford it. I'm gonna save myself the $1,000, $2,000 here and just make a AI logo for $20.
And let's be real, like we are all quite unique people. So maybe we're not the easiest to deal with from a company person who just wants straight to the point. I need this and this is how I want it to be. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, because we might try and put our own spin on it because we're like, we want it to be unique or represent our style on some level. And they'd rather just type it into a machine and it makes it in 30 seconds, 4 renditions, and
but
they just refine
that's the thing.
it.
Like clients think they know better,
Yeah.
but they don't. They don't really. They're not artists.
Yeah.
They don't have the good taste.
You're paying me to make something because you like my style.
Right. And then you're telling me not to do what I think is best for you.
Unfortunately, in the commission work, that was why I always had it to fall back on, but I don't think I ever really enjoyed it. There was maybe a couple of commissions that I did where I was like, this is fun, this is cool, but it was always, I was always, they're gonna really like this one because that looks great. And then I would make that one a little bit more detailed to try and grab them, and they'd be like, yeah, I really like this one. And they would, you know, 80, 70% of the time they would pick my least favorite thing on a sheet of 20 designs. I would kind of put my favorite one in the middle, made it a little bit more detailed. And,
you got to give your client what they want, but their client might just be not have great taste.
Yeah.
Other than in general, they liked your art, but they don't really know why. It's complicated. But even with murals, like yesterday, like a lady came and was like, ooh, I really like your mural. Could you come to my house and paint me a pretty flower? And it's like, lady, I don't think I'm your kind of artist. There's lots of flower painters and stuff. I like to do psychedelic monsters. And if you're into psychedelic monsters and creatures from other dimensions that you like to say hello, I'm your guy. But if not, I don't know, I might not be your fit.
Yeah, I guess I can relate to that a lot. I mean, I know you're a little bit older than me, but I feel like we've been on a quite similar journey and maybe had like a lot of similar experiences in a way. You know, I have the issue with my paintings is that I'm always trying to show the light and the dark kind of mixing together, or the meeting point of those forces, and trying to show the kind of duality breaking down. I mean, even in the piece I'm doing here now, you can kind of see that a little bit. And I think it's interesting. I was actually talking to somebody last night. When they look at it, half the people will be like, oh, that's kind of scary. Do you know what I mean?
So maybe people resonate with where they're at. Oh, that's scary because I am here and identify that as scary, of like, oh, that's enlightening, but maybe through the hard way or something.
Yes, yeah. And I think I try to always show the light and the dark. And I think that this reality has those elements to it. Everything has a positive and negative reaction. You know, if you ever go through a dark or a difficult time, you can kind of hold on because you know that when you get through this, you're going to find some real beauty. You know, and I think when we really tap into that, we feel so much lighter. Yeah. I think there's a spiritual teaching there, and like even with the thing that just happened in Asheville, I was there with Gavin, and you know, I said yesterday, and the day that we arrived back to his place in the mountains, the storm hit, and like a third of the trees were down, all of the power lines were down, all the roads were blocked.
That's crazy that you arrived the day of the Asheville floods.
Yeah,
that must have been so trippy and surreal and like apocalyptic. Tell me a little bit more about it, because like it looks crazy.
I try to. I think my last 3 years with doing this construction project, I really felt like I've had to push my will on the universe. It didn't want to bend, you know, like I was pushing and pushing and pushing for this, and you know, then your fate mind starts thinking, maybe I'm getting signs that I'm not supposed to do this, and why is this so difficult? And then I realized it's just difficult, and there is always going to be pushback.
You got to earn this shit.
You got to earn this, and like I pushed through so many barriers. I feel 3 times stronger than I was when I saw you last, and probably physically too. And
you'll be lifting logs.
yeah. So it taught me that it's just part of life. It's just hardship, and this whole thing in Asheville, you know, you can kind of get into the depths of it, but then be like, it's washing through. The earth has these cycles. It kind of washes itself.
It's a cleanse in a way, a dirty, muddy cleanse, but.
And it's like
we can have a purpose, right?
We can see that beauty in nature. I mean, in Australia, they have these plants that will only germinate their seeds after a forest fire. And they even have birds that will pick up embers and go and drop them in dry fields to flush out the animals so that they can go down and strike them, you know. And this has been going on for a long time, apparently, because they've developed that evolutionary tactic. And the universe is always showing us that this is the way it works. This is the process that it has. It's a constant cycle of death and rebirth, of everything being temporary, and you know, when people pull themselves out of that, it's going to be way more beautiful than it was before. Maybe the community will be stronger, like people have gone through that journey
it's
together.
a spiritual initiation.
Yeah, people who were politically opposed with their neighbors, and then the next thing you know, they're helping each other cut trees off their house.
That cuts the bullshit out.
Yeah,
it's
they're
like,
running
I
and
don't
sharing
care
generators.
Who you prefer and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, let's survive.
Yeah. And I think that I feel that that's what I have to offer now, is that perspective of bridging worlds.
Yeah.
I feel recently that I found that in my artistic expression, that's my purpose.
Yeah.
Is to try and show people that this division that is created is really not kind of non-existent in the clear eye.
Not that important as we make it to be.
Yeah, and there's always truth on every side of every argument, but both sides become blind if they stick to their side, you know?
Can't be too rigid. You gotta...
Because it's like, oh, this is ridiculous what the other side said, you know, and it's like, but there's an element of truth to it. And you hear the same argument being made on the other side, and, you know, I was really into kind of reading this neurobiological principle to understand how people were working when I was younger, and it took me a long time to figure it out, and I realized that when you trigger the reptilian brain in people, it can be just from you challenging their belief system. So how do you bring information to people that you feel like they need, they've got a blind spot, but in a way that's not going to make them feel like you're challenging them or threatening to them or
at risk.
So I feel like I'm getting better at that now. You know, I've had some I've not been as effective in the past on other things, and that's how I've learned to be better at it.
Yeah. Well, during C19, you took a stance on your version of truth, not pushing it on others, but like, hey, this is my reality. And that threatens a lot of people who are like, your reality is threatening my reality, so now you're my enemy, and I shall take you down, so my reality can survive in my level of confidence of where I'm at.
That whole thing was paramount to my personal growth. Because I learned something so valuable about the world and society and how people operate, and it was a deep dive for sure. And it was scary predominantly because you could see how quickly people could be manipulated. And that made me feel that I was in a very...
You want to rescue them. It's like, hey, can't you see like how their propaganda is shaping your actions, and now you're locking yourself in this little box when you could just fucking... the only person you gotta kind of look up to is like God and the Creator, which is you too, so just... flower.
And I can remember times with people who turned on me for being like let's be patient, let's see what happens, because we don't trust corporations and government, right?
Right.
So I can remember people who turned on me who within 6 months I was sitting around and we were smoking or having a drink or whatever and just shooting the shit, you know? And we were saying, isn't this terrible what the corporations are doing here? You know, and how they lobby and all this kind of stuff, and how the government will just bend over for the money, and then it's, I don't know, but now we're in a crisis, they're all acting in our own interests. I don't know, I think people became very blind, so they were scared. They were scared.
It's a fear, just kind of like, you know what, I'm not going to question anything because I want to be safe. But then they're giving away their sovereignty.
Exactly. And I had people coming to me now who will say something along the lines of, hey man, I'm so sorry that I abandoned you during those times. I'm really sorry that, you know, I kind of turned on you and this kind of stuff. Because I realize now that, you know, you were very fair, you had reasonable doubts. So that for me was it kind of vindicating in a way, because I really feel I I had to wash myself through in that time. Like I had a cleanse of people who I was giving energy to, who maybe it was very one-sided. And then I had that whole washing through, and then I really saw people for who they really were, and a lot of it came to me because now I do, you know, a lot of stuff in extreme environments, and now I kind of only want people to be there with me if I know that they're kind of ride or die, you know. They can share a vision, or they can kind of, they're not going to abandon me when things get tough.
Yeah,
so now
no,
my circle
it's like, hey,
is solid.
You can believe what you want to believe. We have to live this way. Hey, I disagree what this person says. Cool, but that doesn't mean that they're my enemy or that I have to stop. If they get really annoying, then I might be like, oh, cool. No, you can finish it.
You sure?
Yeah,
sure?
It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paulina gave me hers. It's good, and I shouldn't get too sloshy for these. I gotta be like a responsible interviewer.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the thing is,
we don't have to turn on each other just because we got different perspectives on reality. It's just reality's there, we're seeing it from different angles, and we can share each other our notes of what we're seeing, and then hopefully get a more 3D version of reality.
Yeah.
But don't have to like fight. It's like, no, my side is a real one or your side's the real one, and that's what happens with everything. We're like 2 weeks away from an election, and like I just want to stay out of it.
I'm getting out before.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, because who knows what will happen.
Yeah.
Like I still got my perspective and my version of what I believe and what I think reality is and what I think would be best, all in all, but doesn't mean I have to go around convincing people that this is the only way we will be saved, which is what a lot of people do, and it gets kind of like, okay, cool, you believe that.
You're disempowering yourself, but whatever, you know, it's but is there an objective truth? The objective truth is that there are positives and negatives on both sides. There are liars and honest people on both sides, and you know, some things are true, some things are not. There must be some level of objectivity to what's happening, and I think that in the US it's interesting to see how this idea of freedom has been stigmatized, because it's like, you know, people just associate with my guns, my freedom, and they're being derogatory essentially to half of the population.
Yeah, it's like, oh, freedom is lame now. It's like, what? Like, no, we gotta be free to be like whoever we are, even if you disagree with, you know, as long as you're not hurting me, of course, you know, like, you gotta respect each other.
I think people should go and sample countries that adopt their political ideology and sample it and see what they actually are like. And
go to Cuba, go to different places that kind of like gave it up for a certain ideology and see if that works for you.
And it shouldn't be overlooked, the value of freedom, because it's something we should all be aspiring to, because we want to be able to trust people to make their own decisions in society. We want to be able to empower people, and we know they're not going to abuse that power. That's the real goal, really, because we can't govern every single tiny facet of society.
No.
And
there's not one right way of being.
No.
You gotta get messy in order to find yourself sometimes.
Yeah. So some people, they want to express themselves in very unique ways. Other people want to have firearms. As long as those people aren't
shooting each
other, then, I mean, it's fine. I mean, it doesn't mean that we can be hijacked. I think that it all stems from the media. These people don't actually exist as enemies to each other. And we really saw that in Asheville, you know? People who are on the complete political opposite spectrum to friends of mine, and they've like never spoke, and then all of a sudden they're hanging out, they're hanging at the front door, and we're all laughing and joking, and they're like, yeah, you can use my generator, I have drinking water if you need, and it's like, these things, they don't exist.
Those things don't matter. Like say like my next neighbor, Michael, I love him, he's great, he helps me when I need help, and he's amazing. Hey, he could be on the total opposite spectrum of what he believes good politics should be. I don't even want to ask. I don't want to ruin that relationship. I don't want him to think I'm crazy for like my personal perspective. He already knows I'm crazy, so he takes everything with a grain of salt.
But if you're clear, you see through all of that, and you realize it's irrelevant.
You just want to be good vibes, and beliefs are separate. You know, if your beliefs are dictating, like, okay, now let's be bad vibes, then maybe let's observe that belief and work with it.
That's why I've always been like, I knew that we were, you know, we could be really good friends. And I always saw like into you too, because I could see you were being a mediator on every issue and really trying to bring people together. And like, you know, your thing is positive creations. And I feel you're trying to emanate that source and like bring people together. And so I respect you massively for that, and being very vocal as well online about your personal feelings, your perspective, and showing people that you care and it's genuine as well. People can see that it's genuine.
Artists are expressors. If we're not expressing honestly how we're seeing the equation, we're almost like robbing people from the people who are expressing, observing and expressing, and they can take it or leave it. I always like, hey, here's how I see it. I'm not trying to convince you, I'm not trying to fight you, but this is why I'm leaving Canada, which was a big thing for me. And you did that too. Do you have any regrets on what you said, the volume of it, or do you feel like, no, I did what I had to do at that time, and I'm thankful that I had the guts to do it? Hi, we take this little pause from our conversations for me to let you know that I got a brand new art book. This is my second art book, Shamanic Journey, that just came out with Last Gasp Publications. It's a 256-page book, full color, shiny, beautiful pages with full of my art, writing, stories, basically everything I've done in the last 13 years. And I worked really hard on this book. It took me months to lay out by myself, and obviously the art has been a labor of love of many years, and I've condensed it all in this beautiful book that now is available on positcreations.net. You can get a signed version, you can get an unsigned version for a little bit cheaper. And yeah, this won't run out of electricity. On this digital world where we gotta charge everything, or a solar flare could knock out the electricity of the world and you'd be like, whoa, where did all my Chris Dyer go? No, this runs on energy forever. You never gotta charge it, you never gotta water it. It'll always be there to give you new inspiration and art. And I've done this with a lot of love, you know, and I hope that you will get a copy for your own personal library. And reflect yourself in it and make your own book and story of your life. But here's mine, and I hope you will enjoy it. positcreations.net. Thank you.
I'd do it all over again. I might go about it a slightly different way, but it forced me to grow so much as a person. It pushed me into new fields, it pushed me to diversify, it broke me out of a very comfortable situation, which I had too. You know, I was traveling around the world, I was making good money every year, my outgoings were very low, I could live anywhere, go anywhere I wanted to, I had so many friends, blah, blah, blah.
And then you could have potentially alienated half your followers and business relationships.
Well, I did.
Yeah.
Well, I did, because it was a very divisive time, and people was, and my back was up against the wall too. You know, I was very, very much open to what that was going to change, and in my head, I was thinking, well, if everybody's turning on me, then I guess they don't really care about me. And that was the painful part, because people didn't respect my sovereignty.
Yeah.
And people were commanding me to behave a certain way.
Yeah, if you're not
so they didn't respect
doing
me.
and saying and thinking as me, then I won't support you.
Yeah.
Even though, like, I didn't sign up to support Jack for his beliefs, I supported him because of his art.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that I feel all of the artists are suffering equally to me anyway, regardless of what stance they took. So, you know, for me, I don't regret a single thing. Like I said, I would have maybe gone about it a different way at points. And I had people who I thought were great friends, you know, artists from other parts of the world, who turned on me in such a vicious way.
Aggressive.
Very vicious.
Yeah,
I
not
mean,
kind, or like, hey, let me enlighten you about this point of view that you might have missed.
Yeah.
Like, let me show you the corner of my reality.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
why, you know.
I mean, I came from it for a while from an angle of like, look, I just want what's best for everybody. And I don't think it's ever a good decision to make permanent decisions on temporary feelings, and like to be so
Give all our power away.
fearful and like make your decision making on fear. So I don't know, I feel like I was really looking out for people. I really care about people.
Your intentions were good.
My intentions were good, and I do genuinely really care about people, and it was very sad to see what people were being reduced to during that time. And I wish that hadn't had happened so that we could still be friends again.
Now that it's all quote unquote over, have some of them, like people maybe you care, come back and be like, oh, that was all bullshit.
Yeah,
like, you know,
yeah.
let's be friends again and fuck that shit.
Yeah, and I had people that, you know, came to me and they were like, you know, I had the thing and I was quite ill, and like, you know, it made me think about a lot of what you were saying, and you know, I have people that are permanently affected, so it was very real for me too. Like, I had family friends who were suffering from that, and it's not so cut and dry as you're the good guy, you're the bad guy.
No.
And it was, again, it was like you have to be on one side or the other, same how it is now.
Yeah.
And the mediators, they're almost treated with an equal level of hostility. So that's why, for me, trying to bypass that mental weakness that a lot of people seem to have, to really meet them eye to eye, where they can see that you are genuinely looking out for them, is my journey now. To navigate those divisive topics or issues in a way that it's not going to make people feel like that.
Yeah, I've also chilled out. Like, say there's a new chapter or episode where I can be like, oh, don't you see like how this is all the same? This is bullshit. This is making you fearful. And here's the magical solution, which is not true, but we're all gonna buy it just because we feared this issue so much. And it's like, I don't want to go out there and quote unquote enlighten people anymore. If we can have a person-to-person conversation, if somebody cares. If not, that's all inside me. Nothing's gonna change with me going and be like, hey, idiots, what's up? It's like, no, that's gonna create the opposite. That's gonna create separation and division. And the only way we're getting out of all of this is uniting as one and dropping the bullshit.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, maybe that whole thing was a catalyst for a much greater future that we're now starting to unveil. I mean, the world is so unpredictable now, and things are moving so fast. And I made a painting about this once, of trying to tap into how much control do we really have over the human destiny. Like, you know, because Terence McKenna talked about this a lot, about the singularity. Like, everything's going towards this point, but it's a constant expansion of novelty to the point where we can't even discern reality anymore. And I think we're kind of at that part now where people are really struggling to see what's real information. And now with this AI video getting to the point where, you know, we can do...
You don't know when somebody's saying something or not, if they're real or if it was fake. It's like, whoa.
And I've had people send me stuff was like, oh yeah, this person that you were talking about, have you seen that they said this? And then they're on a video saying some completely wild shit. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know that about them, but now I don't actually know if that's real, or it seems kind of out of character.
It's gonna force us.
And people can't tell the difference. That's the problem. I mean, even being aware of all that technology, I can't tell the difference. So,
well, we also want to believe what we already believe.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that thing confirms my belief, and I'm safe in that belief. Let's assign it to be real. But we're going to have to awaken our spiritual ESP intuitions to be able to navigate what's coming.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so confusing that it's like, okay, now I just really gotta listen to my spiritual antennas more than like what's being fed to my mind.
Yeah. I mean, there's clearly going to be some gigantic global event in the next 5 years. Hopefully it's not so grim. I really hope that...
It's already so bad for a lot of people, but...
it certainly is. I mean, I hope that... I don't know, dude. I don't want to say something's going to happen. I don't want to speak it into reality. I hope everything works out.
I think right now we're at a fork in the road where we could awaken gentler.
Yeah.
We could awaken radically, but quicker. And let's just get to it, nip it in the butt, and let's get to the good part.
Yeah.
I think the good part's, you know, how we get there, but still we reach that point of singularity where we go back to God and we get one step closer to like our intuition, our superpowers, our spiritual selves, but choose your path to it. I personally would like an easier one where you just kind of like identify and be like, oh, this shit's bullshit, let's remove this, now let's move forward into goodness.
Yeah.
But some people, you know, it's a collective vote in a way.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, maybe if we had a gigantic EMP that destroyed everybody's cell phones and television sets, maybe that would just fix everything.
That seems like it, because when I was in blackout, even for like 5 days last week after the hurricanes in Florida, I felt so spiritual, dude.
Yeah.
Like I was just sitting in my backyard painting my Trippy painting, microdosing in the sun, and I just felt, oh man, I can really feel the evolution of humanity
I can relate to that
happening right now, and I'm so optimistic, and I just know we're gonna make it, but at the same time, there's these terrible things happening, but every individual needs a different storyline plot for them to be like, oh, really? This is what reality is about?
So how do you navigate that as a social media person who runs his business online and the online media sustains you? How do you manage your relationship with that?
With the awakening and the terrible things happening?
I mean, with the cell phones,
Yeah.
Primarily, because that's giving you information all the time that is... It's interesting, you want the information, but it's probably not the best for you. And I think a lot of people have the same issue. So how do you navigate that?
This guru I used to say, like, be like the bee at the edge of a honey pot and like stick your thing and like eat the honey, enjoy the world. Don't jump in the honey and get lost in it and then drown and sink and die. So I take in the information, but I always try to keep it conscious, like, don't get emotionally engaged. Just like, learn, oh, that's interesting. What else? Oh, now I know this is well. Why are you learning these things? Like, oh no, maybe one day if I get in a discussion with somebody, I'll have the information. I was like, or it's mental entertainment. I still have a mind. The mind wants to know. I'm giving him his food, but don't let this motherfucker control my heart. At the end of the day, if my neighbor Michael is struggling, I don't give a shit about this. I care about this, and let's go and make what's proper. And what I share, still, I do my Sunday shares on Instagram, and I know sometimes I'm gonna trigger some people by my truth, and I'm always trying to be super kind about it, be like, hey guys, I'm not trying to diss you or your perspective
I love
of
your
reality.
Sunday views.
Thanks.
I watch them all the time.
Oh, thank you. But I know I do lose followers or people resonating, and that's where they're at, and that's okay too. I can only express as I can.
Let's hope for those people too that they can see that not everybody has to agree with them.
Yeah, or that you're not bad just because you have a different perspective.
But then it's, they might be doing what we're doing. You're saying you suck from the edge of the honeycomb, you're getting the information that you need. So I'm assuming that if something becomes too emotionally triggering, you're just like, maybe not, I'll stop. And maybe that's what they're doing. I mean,
whenever I listen to a lot of stuff on YouTube, and for me it's like interesting, But then as soon as the energy gets out, like, okay, this is a little too bitchy, too fuck you-ish kind of vibe. It's like, it's coming with a little bit too much of their emotional engagement in it, and I need to cut it out because I might resonate with that, and I don't want to get to there. I want to like see it
Stay in the middle.
in a very like neutral, like, oh, this is bullshit. this might not be bullshit. This is so-so. Either way, I'm not jumping into anybody's pool and being like, this is my pool and fuck your pool. It's like, whatever. Let's just figure it out. And at the end, I don't know shit.
Yeah.
We haven't spoken enough about your art, and your art, it's beautiful. No, that I'm the interviewer and I'm conducting this thing. Please tell me a little bit more about what you're expressing through your paintings.
I guess that point currently is this interplay between light and dark, to see that they are all the same thing. And I think even Alex Gray might have said something about this at one point, about how, because if I am correct, Gray is actually his chosen name, like he chose that,
his real name's Alex Bursky.
Bursky, okay, sounds
not as cool.
Eastern European or something.
Yeah,
like
Polish,
that.
I think.
Right, interesting.
Yeah. And he's from Ohio, Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I guess he's chosen that, and I believe hearing something about it's not about this kind of one color or the other. Like there's so much more variety in gray, and there's
he's trying to neutralize it.
Yeah. So maybe that's where it came from. Maybe that was a seed in my brain when I was quite young, and it kind of just sprouted, and I'm doing my own version of that in a way.
Yeah.
And if you look at a lot of his paintings, I guess he is doing a similar thing on some level, because he's, there's a painting he did called, is it called Prostration or Prostration? Where there's the guy bowing down to this universal energy, and then all all of his demons are at the bottom, so they'll be like lost.
I love those creatures.
Greed,
that's my favorite part of painting. It's like,
I can see why.
What are these trippy little monsters doing down here?
Yeah. So I think that he's probably trying to do the same thing as what I'm trying to do, and he's been obviously a big inspiration to all of us. So I'm trying to now refine that so that it's not so busy, to kind of refine it down to less and less subject matter and more subtlety, but still contains my style.
I think your detail is more in the brushstrokes.
Yeah.
Because, say, this is a not overly busy mural.
No.
You got lots of negative space to give room for what is happening, but even though this is a quickie, this is not the maximum expression of you, obviously, because you could have gone into this for another 2 weeks and really brought in 100 more lines and shades. But tell me, what's the importance of a brushstroke? What is a brushstroke? Is it pure energy manifested in linear visual expression?
So I guess I have done a lot of pieces that are quite refined, not quite as refined as yours. You go with those tiny little gel pens, and that's like amazing. But mine is, I guess, has always been a bit more expressive, and I've been moving deeper and deeper into that now. So especially with the advent of AI and the Midjourney and all those kind of softwares.
So you are cheating.
No. No, I kind of like fed some of my art into the algorithm and see what it gave back to me, and it felt very, I don't know, it didn't sit right with me, and I kind of put it aside and was like, I don't know if that's really where I want to go. I don't know if I want to feed into that. So then I have now, with these brush strokes, I'm trying to make it look very chaotic, but have a cohesive image.
Yeah.
And for it to almost look messy and sporadic, and like I was throwing shit at the canvas. I want it to look like that, because the AI is going to just look at that and be like, I don't really know what's going on here. And I don't know, I think that's my little niche thing I'm trying to do right now, is to make something that couldn't really be copied, because it has that natural chaos.
Yeah.
So I'm using brushes that can give a very unpredictable kind of brush stroke, and trying to control that to a certain degree to make it look chaotic, to make it look disorderly, but they're placed in the right way. So I'm going to keep working on that, and I feel every painting I'm doing with that ideology is slowly getting better.
Well, that brings up to a question. what is chaotic? You are still the controller of your hand. So no matter what you do, it's control. You can even say it's controlled random chaos. Say like that was what I was doing with my painting yesterday, where all the shadowing was just like. And sometimes I'm like, oh, that looked cool. That not so much. But also like I was trying to break my brain in like, I know like my shading's usually very uniform lines, and I was trying to break that to just break the box once again. But then
that's kind of the same mentality as me. That's kind of what I'm doing.
So you're not really thinking about it like, oh, this line would good. It must be a mix between like this line looks good here, but also like I don't want to think about it too much, or if not, I'm controlling.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I kind of, you know, did they used to call it? Was it? Like these old masters, they used to do, was it like random drawing? I can't remember what they called it. It was something like where they were trying to detach their need to make something cohesive to do almost like a chaotic thing. I think it's kind of like that. No? I can't remember what they had. There was a term that they used.
Where they make a mess and then from the mess they find the order?
Yeah,
okay, that's the calcomania.
Yeah.
Frottage is another word for it. That's a Robert Venosa kind of style for like, okay, here's a blob of messiness and let's find the cohesiveness in it.
Yeah, I think that maybe that's what I'm trying to do, a form of that. If I have this one brush that I really love at the minute. It was incredibly expensive, but it's, you know, I've had it for maybe 6 years now.
What?
Yeah, and it's
one brush 6 years.
Yeah, dude. It's I mean, it was worth what I paid for it because it's so good.
I want to see this brush.
Yeah, I'll show you later for sure. Yeah, and I tried to make 3 colors on one brush stroke, and then I wet it a lot, and I tried to get that gradient on the brush, keep it where I can put it in one value, and try to do that one gradient in one brush stroke. So that's where I see, I'm getting more control with it, but not too controlled.
Yeah.
You know, and I think if I develop that, then it's a very hard route for people to follow.
Yeah. And
then, you know, as like I was saying to you yesterday with those pens, you know, I'd never seen anybody else do that.
Yeah.
And you've done it for so long now. How likely is somebody is going to get to that level of ability to imitate what you're doing? And there you've kind of like, you've created your own, I don't even know.
Style.
You've created your own style there that's very hard to imitate.
I share it with people all the time, but I tell it like...
But people aren't going to copy you, are they?
Yeah, they're not gel pens. They're bottles for t-shirt making. Puff paints is what they call it. And it's got a little nozzle and the lines come really thin and stuff. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, use the technique if you want to go and do some thin line work and texture, but do it in your own style. Don't make a painting that looks like a Chris Dyer, because that's not going to serve you.
Yeah, for sure.
We all, you know, I'm sure there's a million ways of baking the same cake.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's also as well that these motifs that touch us, they impress on us, and we kind of, it touches something inside of us. And, you know, I've had lots of younger artists who have looked up to me, and they've tried to do something that's quite similar, but then it doesn't really work because they need to find their own artistic style. So I think every artist has had that on some level.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We all lean on somebody else's style at the beginning because we don't know where it goes and you gotta practice. Me was Puzzhead, I don't know if you know that artist.
No.
And then, or Jim Phillips from Santa Cruz Skateboards, if you know that.
No.
Those were my initial inspirations as a young skateboarder. And you learn the technique, but then you do your own shit.
Yeah.
So you can learn a certain way of, you can learn the Mish technique, but don't make an Amanda Sage painting with the faces and the lines around. You gotta find something new that nobody else has done, and I don't know what that is, but.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest inspirations artistically have been people like Alphonse Mucha.
Okay.
And people like Stanislav Silvaski, and these, because I feel like that was a period of art where they could become quite nationalistic in a sense, for better or for worse, but they were building this cultural identity, and the political powers would see that and lift these artists up and like design our buildings, design our furniture, design our motifs that we use to carve into stone. And that maybe was like a golden age, you know, for that kind of stuff. And I feel if we can return to that on some level, then because artists have the best intentions most of the time. And if we can kind of give them that opportunity to create cultural motifs or to create things that can be literally set in stone to become part of our cultural identity that resonates with people, like what Alex is doing with Alison, I mean, that's gonna way outlive their line, you know. That's gonna be there and impress on people in ways that will echo throughout time. And that is, I think we've lost that. We need to reclaim these types of temple spaces or these sacred spaces and build it in a way that it's not going to be destroyed. And that's what I'm trying to do in Mexico now by making this artist residency, but the construction has this inherent artistic quality and trying to get into metallurgy, casting and bronze sculpture. This is where I want to go. To create something that is difficult to destroy. It's moving. People see it.
You want to create a Mayan pyramid or something.
Yeah, I mean the base looks like a Mayan pyramid. The base is based on a Mayan pyramid for sure. And then on top of that, I want this Japanese temple with these carved beams and everything. And
so tell me about your Mexican project. I know I left it for the end. You've been mentioning it for other things. It's almost like you build all these different skills and carpentry and construction and etc. And now what, you bought some land around Tulum or something?
Yeah. So it's me and a group of friends and my partner. We have this project deep into the Mayan jungle in that area. And
in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico.
Yes. And we have, I mean, specifically myself, I have a lot of experience with these permaculture sites and different methods that people are using. And it's always been my dream to do something like this. I was saving money for this kind of thing for a long time and just waiting for the right place. I knew who I wanted to do it with, and we were waiting for whoever was going to make the first move so we could be together, you know? And yeah, we all met through artist residencies too.
Okay.
So it was kind of our dream to make our own. And
why Mexico?
I mean, there's many different reasons. I always thought I was going to end up in the mountains, but because my ideal scenario would have been to have a spring or a small stream running through the property at high altitude, so I could get really fresh water, and then I can direct and control that to create like a self-watering garden. That was my vision originally, and this is kind of like an idea that I saw being executed by a German man called Klaus in Monchique in Portugal, and I kind of took the idea and developed it and kind of made it into a construction. So
where are you getting the water from?
So all of the water in that region is underground. There's no rivers, there is lakes, but you know, it's more of like a flooded plain because the ground's solid stone, so it all goes underneath the water.
And there's all these cenotes.
Yeah, everywhere.
You don't have a cenote in your land.
I wish, you know, if I had one, then I would probably
drink it all.
Sell the property to an investor and buy another plot, to be honest.
Gotcha.
It's nice. I mean, there's also options of blowing into the ground and making our own, but I don't know if I really want to do that because at the end of the day, we're drinking that water. So our whole philosophy is to
keep it clean.
Yeah, no contaminants on site, not to let anything go into the soil, have a completely closed loop, everything to be recycled. You know, we're really in that way of thinking, because my idea is, okay, so I had these lofty ideas about how society should be ran, and it was like, what do I really know about running a society, and how do, you know, it's not like it's an easy thing to do. I mean, you're having to appease to millions and millions of people. So if I can't even do that on a small scale, who the hell am I to say what should be happening on the larger scale for people who I've never met, who have maybe completely different.
So you got to create your microcosm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Essentially, and
No pun intended.
Yeah. But yeah, so to be presenting something that is showing people a new way, and to make it work, and to be an antidote to all the division and all this kind of stuff is just, I
Let's just
can't
do
stop.
the world we believe in, as opposed to tell other people.
Yeah.
How many acres you got out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a massive area. I think we maybe have about 1 hectare. But it's very far into the jungle, and it's so difficult to do something there that it's very unlikely that we're going to have neighbors, I feel.
Okay, cool.
So we have hundreds of square kilometers of virgin jungle at our doorstep. We hear jaguars mating calling to each other. We see toucans every day,
Cool.
snakes and exotic animals galore,
And you had to build them from scratch.
I mean, there wasn't even a road when we got there.
Okay.
I had to get really into the cycle of destruction and creation by deforesting about 500 square meters of virgin jungle,
Wow.
which with just me, my partner, and one other guy that I work with, a Mexican guy from Tabasco called Jaime. And that was the most intense work I've ever done in my life. And I had a really good friend from Finland come and help me start cutting into the jungle, but I mean, he's a badass. That was not for the faint-of-hearted, and only now we're at the point where we're going public, because I couldn't have expected, there's a lot of people who want to come and help, but I couldn't have expected anybody to come and shift 100 tons of stone and break stones up. Yeah, it was dangerous, taking gigantic trees down, chopping them up with chainsaws, milling our own lumber. So we were really breaking stone and reforming it into this
terraforming
Yeah.
little paradise. And what's the goal for it?
It will be an artist residency.
Okay.
But it will also be a big permaculture project where we grow lots of food. So we plan to host artists to come there and explore their creative expression, or they just want to come there to have a time away and make some art and just be in a very peaceful environment. It's very serene, lots of inspiration, and if they want to dabble in any other fields, the tools are there for them to do it.
Yeah, it's like an incubator.
I mean, I was even speaking to Spiro, because I can weld now. I do quite a bit of welding too, and Spiro was saying, oh, in school I was learning how to weld, and I was doing sculptural welding. I said, well, you should come out there and we'll make a sculpture together. And she was like, that sounds amazing, I would love to do that, I'm totally in, this sounds so fun. And she's saying I haven't had the opportunity to do that for years. So these things just happen organically. I'm not even really pushing for it. I just know that that's what's needed, and build it and they will come kind of situation.
Yeah,
so,
if you build them, they will come.
Exactly. So when we get more settled, then we will probably do workshops, but we want to do intensives where it'll be a week, 2 weeks, or even a month, we hope, and we can do 10 to 15 people and host them and have them be comfortable and taken care of. So we'll hire chefs who are friends of mine, and they'll come and they'll cook for everybody and build that community spirit, and then people can go away and be inspired by that, share that with other people, and then people will just organically come. I mean, people are just organically coming there anyway, and it's not even, it was just rocks and steel and generators for 2 years, and now we have closed rooms, we have a gigantic workshop, we have running water.
Cool.
So it gets more and more comfortable with every passing month.
That's awesome, man. Congrats. It's so great to build a space for community. And if there is a giant planet cataclysmic episode, you're hooked up in a place off the grid with your own water and power, and you can fend off from nature. And if it doesn't happen, you got a place to keep on blossoming the flowers of the hearts of people.
I see it as we can't lose. There's and I feel that when I've had the boldness to do that, the universe is placing the steps down in front of me and being like, this is the path you must walk. If you want to achieve that, you must go through the fire. And we have been through some serious flames at this point. And I just feel at this point, nothing can stop me. The universe wants me to succeed.
Yeah.
It respects that I've had the confidence to keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
Uh-huh.
And then it's like, okay, now we're gonna start making it a little bit easier for you. You know, you put in this work and, you know, there's always gonna be ups and downs. There's gonna be more difficulties, I already know. I mean, we've had some pretty intense stuff happen and we had to really stand our ground, you know. It was intense, but without going into too much detail. But now we're at a point where, you know, we're seen by the community, we're respected by the community. Our workers, they're like friends to us now. You know, we were like almost crying when we were saying goodbye to each other because we've been there slogging it every day for 6 months.
And now you're closer also to North America in this scene.
Yeah, totally. And that's what's been missing from my life in the UK, being a solitary studio artist. So if I was plugged into this world and people were able to come from here to there, I know I can help them be happier, and I know that I'm going to be happier too by being able to come and hang out with you guys and be here and being in this scene, which, you know, always anyway, 85% of my work was being sent to the USA anyway. So I feel people are familiar with my work already, and obviously people appreciate what I do here, and I don't really get that in the UK or Europe. I don't have the appreciation for what I do.
It's so weird, because say like United States and Canada are very similar, but in Canada, sales are way smaller. Just, I don't know, maybe Canadians are just more chill and self-sustained. They don't have to buy that art piece or book. They're just kind of like doing good. But you come to the States and people are just like, what's the next thing I gotta get? Because this is just how we express ourselves through what we buy and we use and read and show.
I mean, it gets a bad name of people having this consumerist culture, but again, not everything has to be so bad. I feel like people really talk about those things super negatively, and they talk about money negatively, and it's like, that's your perspective. It can be positive or negative.
I think it's love.
It doesn't have to be so dark.
Well, people buy your paintings because they love it, and they want to see love in the world, and they reflect love.
But then somebody might be like, oh, but that's bad because you just need to sell this work to sustain yourself, and like, is that printed on
do you
vegan
need this and that
stuff
in order to find your love? But whatever.
It's like, dude, I'm doing my best here, you know.
I buy toys, and sometimes I'm just like, oh, what is all this plastic in my house? But that's my love. It's like, oh, this is what I love, and I'm expressing it and reflecting it on me, and it's all good vibes at the end. It's bliss, it's positivity.
Yeah, I mean, if we follow the philosophy that all type of capital is negative, then why don't we just relinquish our clothes and go and live in a cave?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the ultimate non-consumerist, right? Somebody who needs for nothing. So I just like to take things to their logical conclusion, because then we can kind of see like, what does this ideology really mean? And that's why I don't tend to fall into any ideologies anymore, because when you take it to its logical conclusion, you just see, well, it's kind of a bit silly. It's always in the middle. We shouldn't be extremists.
As long as you're not like hurting people around you in order to get that paper and the things you buy with it, and look up then you got lost in that honeypot. Yeah. But you can still eat from the pot, and you know, I think it's not a bad thing. Well, I'm so happy about your project. I look forward to going and hanging out with you and painting you a mural on a couple walls whenever I do. We do a workshop. I love all these hubs popping up everywhere. We got Ray Oraca from Moksha. He's doing his in Puerto Rico. And to some degree, I wanted to do something in Peru, but I don't know if it's going to work out with my parents' retirement plan. So maybe now I'm building a little something in St. Pete.
I'll build you a beautiful wall and you can come and paint it. And also, I'd love for you to meet my friends Joey and Katrina. I just know that it's gonna mesh like perfectly. So I look forward to the day that we can host you guys there. You have to keep your eyes on it and see when it gets comfortable enough. And when it looks comfortable enough, like, we'll make it a nice trip for you guys.
Yeah. No, I'm not rushing into it. Same with Ray's spot in Puerto Rico. It's like, groom it a couple more years before I show up. It's cool. No rush.
No, I mean, people have different levels of creature comforts, and for me, I know that now I've had enough time of camping in the woods in my hammock and doing all these events and stuff, but I like it still. But you know, I guess we all get more comfortable and...
We're getting less young.
Yeah.
Not to call ourselves old. What's your age?
I'm 32.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So getting there, but still really empowered to go and chop down some trees and shit.
Yeah, and my body's still strong, and like I don't feel I feel like if you keep exercising after 30, you don't lose that muscle mass, and your body keeps building and building and building. So as long as you stay exercising, you don't necessarily feel the weight of the age, for sure.
You gotta just keep the momentum going.
Yeah.
And stay young.
Yeah, for sure, and not fall
mind.
into too much comfort, because then you start to let loose and everything. But you look healthy, man. You look the healthiest I've seen you for a long time. You look like strong and like
thanks, man. Yeah, well, 45 years old, about to be 46 soon
barely
enough.
looks 35.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm happy. Paulina keeps me young. She's cool.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but you used to be a bit bigger, and now like you look healthy. So I think you look younger now than you did when I met you.
Okay, yeah, well,
but
that
that's
was
the health thing, I think.
Boom, 2016. I was fresh off my divorce. I was thick, and
thick boy.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh shit, like I'm single now at 37. Now I gotta like get back in shape and not be ugly, so that somebody will like
you
me.
were never ugly, bro. You've always been a beautiful character.
Well, thank you so much. I like you too. But yeah, I don't know, out of respect for myself, let's be healthy and not let go too much. Because I am unhealthy in other ways. I drink beer, I smoke, I throw myself on a skateboard and crash my face on the ground every now and then. But, if I can eat healthy enough, hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
To keep the spirit.
I love the paintings of you as I see them as you anyway, like your Mayan spirit version almost. That's like on the skateboard and like that's your spirit inside, I think.
Oh, thanks. Well, that particular painting, the ultimate spiritual warrior, is more like an archetype to strive for as the empowered, strong, spiritual warrior that goes out there to serve the world with love and intelligence. And it's not where I see myself, but you always want to strive for your potential, your highest self.
highest alter ego, as it were. Yeah,
which is there. So if you paint it, you're like, okay, I got something to aim at.
Yeah, I did a painting like that too once.
Nice.
It's kind of how but I almost look like an older man there.
Okay, cool.
I have like long hair and like a big beard and stuff, and then it just felt very natural to do that. Maybe that's when I have that big beard and that long hair. Maybe that's when I'm reached my highest self. Let's see.
Nice. Well, I'm gonna have to ask you to send me some pictures of your paintings and stuff to illustrate this podcast a little bit.
For sure,
Put it just on the right way. Well, thank you so much for making some time to hang out with us here.
Yeah, we finally got it done. It took like maybe 5 years, bro. Yeah, we got it. Yeah.
Do you have some final words of wisdom for our viewers who watch this show? As an artist, as a person, as a human?
Yeah. I would say that there's more in common that you have with everybody than what you think you have as differences. And people should try and focus more on what they can see eye to eye on instead of what makes them different. I mean, we all want to be unique and beautiful in our own ways, but I mean, not to kind of split hairs on every topic, to try and be contrarian just to think that you're some super smart devil's advocate, and kind of realize that everybody has a little bit of truth to share, and even if somebody appears like they might be crazy to you, it doesn't mean that they are. It maybe just means that they're extreme to your perspective, and to really try and find your similarities with people instead of your differences, and to maybe stop before you're about to act in a triggered or overly emotional way, and to really look at that side of yourself and think about why you're doing that and where that comes from, and also to consider that maybe we don't always have all of the perspectives, so to always be aware that there's information that you don't have that may make you blind, that may make you butt heads with people where you're probably just wasting your energy and frustrating yourself. And if you keep doing that, you'll just become more isolated, which is the opposite of what your soul really wants, is to be
It's so easy to project, huh?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they did this, they did that because of this and that. You don't know. You don't live in their heads. That's why I found silence as being such a great tool for like when somebody
meditation,
like attacks me or says something negative or even asks me something I'm not ready to respond to. I was just like, you know what? I'd rather just like shut the fuck up. Leave it at that. Maybe one day I'll be able to respond or maybe not. And I respect Chris to just keep it neutral and silent.
And sometimes as well that you know, I've had to learn this, to leave things well enough alone. Sometimes you can keep kind of going to it and going to it and going to it, and your brain knows that it's not going anywhere, but you can't stop yourself from doing it for some reason.
So that's your issue then.
Yeah. And then I'm like, well, that's me.
Yeah.
And I've had to really work on that to be, like you said, to be okay with being silent on the issue.
Yeah.
And sometimes if people aren't listening, just
what
don't
can
say
you do?
anything.
I don't think, like, it seems like we want to go out there and tell our truth and then people will be like, oh, well, I see your point of view and now I'm going to think that way. But most times that doesn't happen. Most times they go even further away from where you're at in contrast.
Yeah.
And, you know, repulsion.
You make more extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people want to feel connected. They want to feel seen and respected. And if you really want to connect with somebody, just ask them more about them. And just be more present for them. And you know, it's not that people are narcissistic or self-absorbed, but if you go up to people and you say to them like, oh, that's really interesting, I like this thing that you did, tell me more. And then that person's going to feel seen, they're going to feel like loved and respected, and this just bridges all of those differences. You know, that's what people are really yearning for. And the more that we just fight with each other, the worse we're going to make everything. And especially now, coming up to this election in the US, everybody's eyes are on the US, and I just hope that everything is happening for the right reason and people can see through it and see people are actually their neighbors, and you know, just getting to that more.
Curious to see what will happen in 2 mere weeks. By the time people watch this, they'll be like, oh yeah, we know what happened.
I'll watch from the UK.
No big deal. It's like, I'm leaving the country.
Yeah.
I don't think people are going to fight. Everybody says like, oh, it's going to be a big civil war and fight between areas. I was like, I just don't see my neighbors leaving their houses, going downtown and looking for the enemy to fight on the streets. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't see anybody who is just so stuck on their ways that they have to go and beat up and even kill a stranger over it. And if that's a reality, like, oh, poor sick person who went too far into their sauce.
I guess the best advice on that is be very, very, very careful about what information you consume, because it's all designed to get its hooks into you and drip feed you the drug of rage and division.
To get you into that point that you would go out and fight a stranger.
To get you to the point where you believe the only thing to do is to go and try and do something violent. And that is the big problem that we have in the society, I think.
Do you think artists like us matter? Make a difference? Are we doing something here, or are we just painting trippy pictures and who gives a shit and the bigger picture? Or are we actually doing something that is making the world a better place?
I think that we are. I think that we also have untapped potential, and I think we are the surfers of worlds, so we have lots of unique perspectives, and every artist has something unique and interesting to share. But maybe that, maybe it's more than just painting. Maybe there's more to it than that, like a vision that, and that's what I'm trying to do, I guess. Is trying to create a vision that is a container for other visions, to create an amplifier or a prism to shine all of the spectrums of light for others instead of just like my own light.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
I feel like art is like the chocolate wrapper, and we're trying to give him like even like the chocolate, or maybe even the nugget inside, or the nuts or whatever's inside the chocolate. That's what the reality. At the end of the day, we're trying to share God.
Yeah.
But God is ineffable, and not material, while at the same time all material.
Yeah.
So art's kind of like, you know, we're fishing on our rods and it's a little worm at the end. And people are like, oh, the worm, oh, the art, that's what it's all about. And you're just trying to like, yeah, but like, come here and bask in this energy behind it all.
Yeah,
and it's the energy of love,
yeah,
and of oneness.
Yeah, I mean,
spirit.
Some people, it unfortunately can be just only when they're in certain states. It can be super expansive for them. And I've sometimes caught people looking at a piece of art and going and kind of listening to what they're processing, and they're going through it, you know, and that it can actually affect people in that way. I kind of lost touch in that in the last 5 years because I haven't been doing any of these events. But then to see people be completely moved and they're absorbing something that jumps all of the language barriers because it's just a visual image, you know? Like a person could speak any language and potentially they could have this experience. And that's not to be overlooked, for sure.
And art is more than just like the art. Once again, art is like the energy that we're like wizard coding in the invisible world. And there's something behind the painting that people can't perceive, not even us, but we're weaving it while we're doing it because we're just like opening ourselves up to spirit to work through us in the filter of us that comes out as Chris and Jack. But there's a vibe behind it. I hope one day like our ESP comes online and we're like, whoa, I can see the coding behind every painting now, or even entities living inside a painting. Like that's gonna be fun.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, maybe we are channeling that through. Maybe that's what we're bringing, and that's why I never, whenever a painting feels like I'm just making something pretty or nice to look at, in my personal opinion, my own work, I never think it really looks that good. But when it has a message there's kind of coded inside of it, and a process I was going through at the time, and I'm tapped into that flow, then I feel like I'm channeling something. And that's always the pieces where I find people in front of them just like, you know.
What am I seeing here? There's something I'm not getting.
Yeah.
You know?
I did an exhibition at Boom, and then I was able to put the poems that go with each respective painting underneath.
Okay.
And that was great because I set up a time lapse that was hidden in the top of the tent in Boom to see how, you know, because I wasn't there all the time, or I wasn't watching, or I was painting with Luke, so to see how many people were getting caught there and how long they were getting caught there, you know. And I was amazed to see how many people were sitting down there for a good 10 or 15 minutes just reading the poem, looking up and being like, whoa, dude.
Really absorbing.
Yeah, so when I did that exhibition, they were all pieces that had they were those good ones that I did. Yeah. They had that feeling underneath them, and they could give that impression to people, and then that made me feel whole, because finally I feel like I was achieving what I've been trying to achieve for so long.
Yeah, touching the hearts of people.
Yeah, exactly.
That's beautiful.
So the more we do that, you know, maybe we're helping to catalyze that evolution on some level.
Yeah, break down the barriers and unite as one. I think art is something that can change the world, and especially art with the intention of bringing forth the spiritual realms that we can't really see, but perhaps are in our future.
Yeah.
You know, these might be the places we might go in some future where we get enough enlightenment to escape the physical imprisonment that we're in right now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this was also the past.
When we were already tapped into that.
Yeah, maybe if they dig deep enough in the sand, maybe this is in there somewhere.
Yeah, so is this like Egyptian or Egyptian inspired, but like could just be like random? Or?
Yeah, kind of like Egyptian and mysticism linked together, and you know, I have my ideas about what was going on there. I don't have any proof. There's certain things about the academic takings that don't really add up, and there's certain things about the esoteric side of it. I'm wondering if they were using some type of plant medicine to tap into another spiritual world. Yeah. So they were using some type of plant medicines to tap into these other dimensions potentially that were they were meeting with these gods and they had names for them, they had dialogues with them. I mean,
so they're recording faithfully what they're capturing on the other side of reality.
Or they were going into dreams or astral projecting. I mean, you know, maybe they were physical. Maybe they were physical beings that were coming down. Maybe that culture's way older. I mean, these are all just musings.
Yeah, Anunnaki and, you know, Draconians were more exposed at the time that the veil was thinner. So, like, a being did have a dog face, because that's what their planet looked like.
Totally.
Well, today we see them as humans on a podium.
Yeah. And in my journeys, I've encountered beings that were like, well, that kind of looks like Sobek. What's he trying to show me? Like, is this what they were seeing? Seeing like giant bird-headed anthropomorphic figures that are trying to lead me somewhere and show me something, and they want to guide me and uplift me, like they want to give me the gift of inspiration so that I'll go and make this painting. I don't know what they're doing. They're communicating with me like octopuses with visual language, and I think I was chosen on a couple of occasions to have some pretty special dreams where I was, wow, something's trying to communicate with me here, something's trying to show me something here, and so maybe that's what was happening for these old ancient cultures, and they were trying to map this world out. I don't know. I have all of these ideas. I don't have proof. It's my anecdotal experience. And
what is it? I don't know what it is, but I love the feeling and energy of these entities. And actually, I don't see a lot of entities in my plant medicine journeys. It's not like I'm seeing these trippy creatures like, oh, I'm gonna remember you, and then I paint it. I feel them, but I never see them, and then I'm painting stuff, and people tell me like, oh, I saw that on my psychedelic journey. It's like, cool, you're lucky, because I don't, but I don't know why I paint this. Do you feel you get most of your inspirations from psychedelic plant medicine journeys or dreams, and what plant medicines you work with?
I mean, I don't really do that so much anymore. It makes me kind of consider other paths that I know I don't want. Does that make sense?
No,
I mean,
not to me. I don't know what you're referring to.
I mean, I can maybe consider, like, I've kind of chosen this path of constructing this thing, right?
Yeah.
But then I might take something and it might make me think, well, what if you're supposed to be over here doing this? Or like I had my last mushroom trip that I did was maybe 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And in that journey, I was going through a lot of this emotional stuff. I like not long ago lost my father at the time.
Sorry.
I was going through a lot of that stuff. And it was me being like, how could you be so selfish to go to Mexico and leave your mother? So I came to this to my mother, and I said, look, I'm having these thoughts and these emotions, and like, I feel bad. And she's like, I would love to have you here with me, but I know that's where you need to be. You need to be doing this stuff, and I want you to be doing that stuff. So it's, I don't know, those experiences can, I don't want to throw doubt on what I'm doing. I will do my journeys afterwards, but I'm gonna do this 2 years of like, you know, pushing up the hill, and then after that, I'm gonna be then more open to what other possibilities there are, and maybe other
psychedelics burst people's bubbles.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you think this is what reality is?
Yeah.
Boop, and you're like, no, now I'm back to scratch. God damn it, why you gotta disillusion reality for me? And perhaps you don't want that quite yet, but it is good to like be like, oh shit, am I giving my mom enough love right now? I think that's a good thing, and even talk to her about it, like, hey, are you good? Like, am I being, you know, selfish? Am I being giving enough? And then she can be like, hey, I respect where you're at, and it's like, okay, cool, at least I checked in.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I'm totally close to it. I mean, my inspiration is actually coming, a lot of my paintings is coming from dreams. I was a very avid lucid dreamer for many years, and I was documenting them and writing them down, and I got very good at recall and gaining lucidity, and then also when I would be in that world, moving around, going into different worlds inside of the dream, and then that was when I encountered this one time I encountered this giant golden orb that turned into this bird, and I had this whole experience. And
quite the dream.
yeah, I felt like I was lucid, and then I was going through, and I'm like, okay, I control these elements, and there was also these kind of monk figures that were very sharp, and they were very meditative, and then at one point they shifted into these dark shades, and they were chasing me, and they chased me into this one room, and in this one room I was like, okay, well that was weird, I don't know what the frick that was about, and then I'm in this temple room with this gigantic steps amphitheater going off into a darkness.
Wow.
And then there's this giant golden orb with this floating gold writing in front of it. And when I was there, it's like, this is something else.
Uh-huh.
This is not part of my imagination. Like this, my subconscious is not filling this in.
Uh-huh.
This feels like it's operating in its own thing. So I went up to it and I touched it, and it pulls my hand inside of this golden orb, and I'm getting sucked in. So I'm like beating against this thing, trying to get it off me, and I'm just kind of being swallowed by it. And then it's like I'm inside of it, and I feel like I'm drowning. I'm drowning inside of this gold liquid, and I'm like, you know,
so
this
Matrix-like.
feels like sunlight in my eyes, and I'm like drowning. And then all of a sudden I'm lifted to the top, and it sprouts these gigantic wings, flies out of the top of the temple, and then we're in the universe, and like I'm seeing the planets get smaller and smaller, so we're kind of like growing in size, and we're growing to the point then I'm seeing all of these galaxies, and they're just getting smaller and smaller, and then I'm seeing this like network, and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and then I just fall off the back of this bird, and I'm just falling through the void, and then I wake up.
Wow.
And I'm
so
like,
trippy.
that didn't feel like it was part of my subconscious. It felt I was like being visited, or I maybe found a secret door into some secret place. Maybe I wasn't supposed to go. I don't know, but that really opened my brain to ideas of like there's other realms, and there's other beings, and there's other...
And maybe a 50-year-old version of Jack is doing a massive ayahuasca ceremony that you waited all these decades, and that was the portal loop into the dream, subconscious, 32-year-old version of Jack, or whenever that dream happened.
Yeah, I was maybe 7 years ago.
Okay.
I made a painting called The God of Dreams, and it's this gigantic phoenix, and I'm like riding on the back of it inside of this temple.
Yeah.
It's very accurate to what I was experiencing, but the bird itself was more liquid.
Yeah.
It was very liquid, and that's kind of hard to paint. I was really struggling to convey it because it was very odd and very irregular, and gold fluids with colors swimming inside of it.
Is that the one with the lion pouring liquid on the faces splitting open?
No, that's another one. But that was from like a Deems experience. So I feel like those beings, maybe they know each other, maybe they're buddies.
Maybe we're from, I think we're from, at least I think I am from that dimension originally, before being an alien, and then I was a human, and then I've been humaning for a few centuries or millennia, who knows. But really, in the eternal point of view, it's just like bleeps of time that are all happening at the same time, and you connect to the reality.
Well, there's some realm maybe where all of these worlds exist at the same time. And in that world, there is no time. And so we're moving forwards and backwards through these worlds, and there's no entropy, and everything's alive all the time, and this realm of here of impermanence and entropy is a chosen experience that we're like manifesting on consciously from that. That's kind of my idea. I know it's not a unique idea. I know other people have similar ideas like that too, and so I think that sounds right what you're saying.
Well, it's great to be right here, right now, as Chris and Jack in the world of the physical, living a human life, observing it all and trying to do humble gestures and cartoons of something that's so magnificent that we couldn't even really barely touch it, but it's so fun to try.
We'll keep working at it.
We'll
get it.
We'll perfect and polish the diamond. Well, thank you so much once again, Jack, for that last question. Had a lot of nuggets in it. And thank you guys for watching another episode of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, press all the buttons that make us come back, and I'll see you next episode. Blessings.
Bye. See you.
Yo. Thank you so much, Jack. Yo. Next episode, Judea Christine.
You know, you could unwield an entire lifetime of trauma in a moment if you knew how to do it. First, you have to believe you can. And the problem is everybody out here thinks they can't. They think they're a victim of like everything that's happening and they have no power. So what I'm trying to show people is how to acknowledge these influential energies that are coming in, face them head on, and have the tools to move it and like to heal yourself. And then you can undo lifetimes of karma in just a very short period of time. Whereas our old history was that we didn't have this awakening and we didn't have this understanding. So we were just accruing karma after karma after karma, and our load got so big, the baggage got so heavy that so many of us out here are failing. Because we're like, I try so hard, I'm so good, why does everything go bad? Everything I go for never works out. It's karma, it's old energy.
So please make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Big thanks, and see you next episode. Peace.